What is up, fellas, and welcome to another episode of PolitiGoob with me, the Goob. Um, what's the deal with Civil War? Um, I've got many different angles I could take on this. They all approach the same conclusion. Before I do that, I want to remind you of who your enemies are, because I think that with this episode and probably a lot of my episodes, it's very easy to just take the black pill. And that's the last thing that I want people to do. It's incredibly important to understand how bad things truly are and how bad things will get so that you can respond appropriately. But it's even more important that you don't take the black pill, right? Don't look at how bad things are and throw up your hands and give up, because then you've given up. You've already lost. It's over if that's what you do. So remember who your enemies are. They are the weakest, whiniest, faggiest, lowest testosterone men imaginable, obese, mentally ill women with multiple colors in their hair frying their brains, and literal third world retard inbred animals. If you don't believe you are better than those people and that you can overcome and dominate those people, you've got some very serious self-confidence issues that I won't be able to help you with, right? But it is very important to remember who your enemies are and how pathetic they are, because it is easy to get black-pilled, and that is the last thing that you should be doing. So I think I'm going to start by talking about Homath, because I recommended him a few weeks ago with a little bit of hesitancy, and the exact reason why is what he's been displaying, right? So he's pretty good at laying out what the deal is, what we're facing, how bad things really are. He's much better at that than I am, actually. I'm not a wizard. I'm not good at casting spells. The left is very good at casting spells with all their newspeak, all their manipulation of language, right? I'm a little bit too autistic for that. I'm exceptionally adept at understanding the reality of things, understanding what needs to be done to change the reality of things, but I'm not the best at communicating through spells where I can just say a sentence and people get it. Like, I take hours to explain things. So Homath has been talking lately about, let's do the big thing. The big thing, I guess, is Civil War, right? These are his words he's using. He's like, I've got a couple 100,000 followers. You've got a couple 100,000 followers. Let's get our followers together. Let's set a date and let's do the big thing, which is not great, because that's not how this works, right? Look at, January 6th. Sorry, let me close my door so the dogs... There we go. The left has been in a civil war for years now. Do you remember BLM? Do you remember literally burning down every fucking city in the country? Do you remember the election stolen in 2020? Do you remember Biden bringing in the military, surrounding the White House with barbed wire because this was a literal foreign coup? Do you remember, after January 6th, political prisoners being held for years in solitary confinement without even charges being brought against them? We have been in a civil war for a very long time. We've been in a civil war where only one side is fighting for years now, right? And the left has continually built up their aggression, practiced their hatred and their anger. And that is why they're able to, effectively do things like burn down half the fucking country. If the right decided to, let's say, set a date and go start the Civil War, it doesn't play out the way that Homath thinks it'll play out. Half measures only make things worse. You look at January 6th. When I was watching January 6th, I remember very early on, like right at the start of it, I was like, this is fucking great. I hope they fuck shit up. I hope they go hard. And I hope they don't go in the building. And then after a few minutes, I was like, they're going to fucking go in the building, aren't they? They're going to fucking go in. And if they do go in, I hope they burn it to the ground and kill everyone inside, because again, half measures don't work. But I knew that wasn't going to happen. I knew they would go in and they'd walk around like fucking tourists like they did. And that only made things worse. You either need to, not do it at all or do it all the way. January 6th didn't improve the situation. We had political persecution, which again only encouraged the right to keep their head down further. They didn't actually accomplish anything because they didn't go in there to actually initiate a insurrection, right? And the same kind of thing would happen if Homath had his way and they set the date to go do the big thing, because you have, let's say they got 1 million people to go out and do this. It's 1 million people who have spent their entire lives keeping their head down, keeping their aggression in check, telling themselves that, the grandma down the street who wants them dead only wants them dead because of a misunderstanding, because they're misled, because they're brainwashed. They will be staring down the barrel of a gun, trying to negotiate with the person who's going to shoot them in the fucking face. The left has been practicing their aggression while the right has been practicing suppressing it. You don't go from 0 to 100 overnight. It needs to be built up gradually, and we haven't been doing that. I want to, project out a few years, right? Because we've got a presidential election coming up in a few years. Of course, there's going to be more riots from the left, more violence from the left leading into that. And then if a Democrat is elected, pretty much immediately we get amnesty for illegals. The birthright citizenship thing is being discussed in the Supreme Court right now. And frankly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter, because it seems, one, that they're likely to reinforce birthright citizenship. But even if they revoked it, what do you guys see around you when you travel around the country, when you go out into your own town? Is it fucking brown people everywhere and no more white people? Because that's what I see. That's what I see a lot of other people saying that's what they see, right? And the problem here is that a lot of those people are technically here legally through birthright citizenship, through, the app that Biden created so that you could just download an app and now you're here legally, through all of these other various bullshit methods and means, H-1B, etc. A lot of these foreign invaders are technically here legally. We don't have a way to get rid of them. But even if we revoke birthright citizenship, even if we then start going through the process of actually revoking legal status from people who are technically here legally, now we have 100 million fucking Browns that have to go in a country of 350 million people. There is no way to deport 100 million fucking people. It's not possible, unfortunately. The only way to get rid of those people is the people themselves rising up against them and letting them know they are not welcome. They are not allowed to be here. It is through the right practicing their hostility and their aggression and not keeping their head down and being as vocal and as visible as possible with their hatred for these foreign invaders. Sorry, again, I'm jumping all over the place. These all do end up in the same conclusion, but forgive me while I hop from topic to topic. The only way to correct the course is to shift the Overton window. You don't shift the Overton window by keeping your head down like Nick Fuentes tells people to do. You certainly don't do it by supporting your enemy like Nick Fuentes tells you to do. You do it by being as brutal as you possibly can. Genghis Khan understood this. This is the mentality that we need to adopt, right? You look at the UK, where thousands of young white girls are being raped through organized grooming gangs that are in cooperation with the police. If you do manage to escape and you try and, complain to the police. They will refuse your complaints. They will blame you for it. They will lobby their legal system against you, against your family. The Muslims themselves will hunt you down in the streets and cut your fucking heads off. They will threaten you and your family and your friends. The UK is fucked. They're past the point of no return. And we are rapidly approaching that here. 4 different white guys have been shoved in front of a subway in the last 2 weeks from black people. I've repeatedly highlighted that, there's this misunderstanding about the sheep, the followers, the people who have no agency of their own, right? There's this misunderstanding that they do not have capacity for violence. They're followers, they're sheep, they're passive. They're not going to slay you in the streets, and that's absolutely untrue. The sheep have essentially unlimited capacity for violence. And when it is sanctioned by the state, when it is cheered and encouraged by the people around them, they exercise that violence. And we're starting to see that in the UK, and we're starting to see that here. And you do not want to reach the tipping point where it becomes fully realized and it is just open season war every single day on white people here in America like it is in South Africa. But we are rapidly approaching that point. Again, keep who your enemies are in mind. Don't get blackpilled. I was never a big fan of the Nazis. Let's go back to the election, right? Democrat gets installed. We already have the infrastructure for Chinese-style social credit systems, 24/7 monitoring everywhere you go. The infrastructure is already here. The hardware, the software, it exists. All that has to happen is for it to be implemented, and it will be. They've opened. I think I played a clip a few weeks ago of the Jewish bitch talking about how they're going to use these tools to go after anti-Semites and all this shit. They're going to destroy your lives. They're going to debank you and essentially remove you from society. That also happens. So, naturalization of all the illegals here, bringing in more illegals, even if they don't just throw the border wide open like Biden did. If the third world realizes, oh, we can just go to America and become American, we'll be welcomed there. They will come. The problem will get exponentially worse. It won't be 100 million, it'll be 200, 300 million in very short order. Surveillance state. It will be over. It'll be over if a Democrat wins. If a Republican wins, we just slow march to that same conclusion. It doesn't happen on day one, but we slow march to that same conclusion. So ideally, what really needs to happen is the people need to start, again, expressing their hostility, their hatred, their anger for both parties involved, and to do so effectively, so vocally, so brutally that we no longer have J.D. Vance, who's talking about, Iran using suicide vest nukes here in America, who's married to an Indian bitch, right? Who's clearly doing the bidding of Israel. And we have an actual real candidate. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that's very realistic. I don't think there's just not enough time to create that environment. So what we really need to do is express that hatred, express that hostility, express that rage, while also supporting the Zionist Republican candidate. We need to simultaneously hate the Republican candidate, but also support them and vote for them. It's frankly an untenable situation, because we can't allow a Republican victory to be an actual victory, because it's not. It's, again, just a slow march towards our doom. And most people, without a massive shift in the Overton window, if we did manage to elect, J.D. Vance, they would again become complacent. Oh, we won. We're safe. We're comfortable. We can sit back and relax. We don't have to do anything. We're in control as we continue to take loss after loss after loss, just like we've done with Donald Trump. So the only thing we can do is start embracing brutality, start accepting the reality around us that we are in a civil war. The left has been fighting one for years, and it is time to start fighting back. I've never been a big fan of the Nazis. I always thought it was kind of pathetic. All the people who, glorify and LARP as Nazis, because the reality of the situation is they lost. They lost. You're supporting a loser, which I don't love. And I always wanted to see a new white identitarian movement rise up. I always wanted to see something better than the Nazis take its place. And unfortunately, we haven't had that happen. And, now that Charlie Kirk is dead, we don't have any leader to step in and create that movement. We have no leader to create this new movement. And we have extremely limited time to embrace some kind of movement. And even though the Nazis did lose, there is a lot of energy around them, both negative and positive. You see in Australia, the people marching and throwing up Sieg Heils, throwing up the salute. I think it might be time to embrace Nazism because we don't have a better option and we are out of time to create a better option. And the propaganda almost works in our favor. There's more anti-Nazi propaganda than literally anything else in the world. And so there is a lot of energy behind that. There is they have been made to be the ultimate boogeyman, the ultimate bad guy. This unrealistic force of power. And so maybe it's time to embrace that and use that. The right, I want to go back to the grandma that wants you dead, right? And trying to negotiate with her. I talked about the DA that got elected in Virginia, the DA that was running against an incumbent Republican who had no scandals. There was nothing wrong with this Republican. There was no great complaint about him. He was doing his job fine, but he was an evil, racist, white, straight male Republican. And so the guy who openly supported killing innocent white children so they don't grow up to be Nazis won that election over the Republican because the grandma who lives down the street from you believed that killing innocent white babies to stop them from becoming Nazis was more favorable than a Republican who's a straight white male, because that is more evil than killing innocent babies, because the Overton window has shifted so insanely far to the left because they've been actively participating in a civil war, because they've been openly hostile and hateful and aggressive, and because the right has been keeping its head down and refusing to participate in such things. Now, a lot of people on the right look at that grandma with sympathy. And they go, oh, she's misled. She believes things that aren't true. It's not her fault. I just need to negotiate with her. I can bring her back to reality with my words. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. The only way to shift things back is through expressing your own hostility and aggression and anger and not taking half measures, not showing up with hundreds of thousands of people who are not actually prepared to fight a civil war, but LARPing is one, and then getting shut down by the people who have been actively participating in civil war for years now and are actually ready to fight. And even though they are the weakest, whiniest, beta, faggiest men amongst us who have lower testosterone than the morbidly obese, retarded, mentally ill women that they're fighting alongside with the 70 IQ, 60 IQ inbred animals from the third world. That side is going to win right now if we were to face off tomorrow. because the right is not ready. The right still does not get it, right? I can say all of these things and people can nod their head and agree and go, yeah, that makes sense, but you don't actually get it, right? You know, there was a good example on Fleckus Talks a while ago where he's like, how old are your parents? Let's say they're 65 or whatever. You know, they have 20 years of life expectancy left. How often do you see your parents? How often do you go visit your parents? Once a year? Okay, so you have 20 times to see your parents again before they die. Right? None of that is new information to you. All of that are things that you already understand. Right? But does putting it into that perspective that you will see your parents 20 more times before they die, does that maybe motivate you to go want to visit your parents more often? Does that put things into perspective a little bit for you, right? There's a difference between getting something and actually getting something. Jordan Peterson, back before he was completely retarded, when he was still smart, you know, he talks about this with religion and God. There's all these Christians out there, or whatever other religions, right, who say they believe in God, who say they believe in heaven and hell, but do they? Do they actually live their life as if there is an all-powerful being watching every single action you take and judging you to determine whether your soul spends eternity in hell being tortured or in heaven experiencing eternal bliss? The answer is no. The vast, vast majority do not actually live their lives as if they believe that. They get it. They don't fucking get it. We do not have time to fuck around anymore. We do not have time to take half measures. You have to be willing and ready to be more brutal than your enemy is. And the right is not there. And the way we get them there is by expressing yourself. Be visible, be vocal. Do not back down from confrontation. Do not flinch when they call you a racist and a Nazi. Sieg Heil, nigger. Be more brutal than they are. Be sure in yourself. Know that this is an existential threat. This is very truly an existential threat. And if you are not willing to fight and die to stop this existential threat, then you are guaranteed to die. If you are afraid to take action because you might lose your job, lose friends, lose family, you know, go to jail, or even be beat up or killed, then those things are guaranteed to happen. Your choice is not don't do these things and avoid it. It is do these things and face those potential consequences and maybe avoid them because you were more brutal and you did overcome and you won, or lose and guarantee all of those things happen and you all die. Your children get raped, their graves get pissed on, you get blamed for it, and they celebrate all of this. You know, I want to know what happened with Charlie Kirk, right? And I actually do appreciate Candace Owens for exposing all the things she has exposed. It has become, thanks to her, blatantly evident that Turning Point USA has been corrupted. It is now spewing the exact opposite of what Charlie believed. They were in on it. His wife was in on it. Probably our government and a bunch of other people were in on it. And I would like to get to the bottom of that and know. But also, that is all a distraction from what we do know and what we've known from day one, which is that the left very openly celebrated his death, called for the death of his children, called for the death of your children. Remember that Democrat DA in Virginia who got elected despite openly calling for the death of white babies so they don't grow up to be Nazis. Do not lose sight of the reality that the majority of leftists, Muslims, Jews, and blacks want you dead. And you can go, oh, it's because they're brainwashed. It's because, black people genuinely believe that cops are killing 1 million unarmed black men every year in America. It doesn't fucking matter. If there is someone who is at your house to kill you and your family because he's convinced that you're raping babies in your basement, are you going to try and sit that person down at your kitchen table and explain things to them? Or are you going to shoot them in the fucking face so that they don't kill you and your family? It doesn't matter if it's a fucking misunderstanding. You need to treat your enemies like the enemies that they are. Infrastructure attacks would potentially be a good thing. Like, it actually wouldn't be too hard to bring down the internet. And that honestly might be one of the only things that actually motivates people to do anything, is if their goy slop gets taken away, their screens get removed. But yeah, we're pretty much at that point, man. Again, I don't want a black pill, but past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. And when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I was pretty confident. I was desperately hoping that I was wrong, but I was pretty confident that the appropriate response would not be taken. I knew the left would celebrate. I knew that was going to happen, and they did. And I could foresee, a vigil of 300 people mourning Charlie Kirk getting shut down by one radical leftist who was willing to be violent, while all 300 stood around passively refusing to meet that violence with their own. I'm starting to lose my voice here. I desperately hoped that wouldn't be the case, but I knew that was likely to be the case, and it was. It's exactly what happened. And there will not be a better opportunity. There will not be a more galvanizing moment than Charlie Kirk's assassination. That was our best opportunity, our best shot at actually turning things around, at actually taking action and doing something. At this idea of acceleration where things have to get so bad for people to finally stand up, like that was that moment. Even Donald Trump being assassinated would not be nearly as energizing as Charlie Kirk's assassination. Charlie Kirk was the closest thing to a modern day Jesus Christ that we had. He was a truly good and kind person. Donald Trump is a very flawed man. Like, even if you believe he's perfect, there is almost as much propaganda directed at Donald Trump condemning him as an evil, horrible person as there is towards the Nazis. As there was towards the Nazis, right? So it's like, it's almost understandable for the left to celebrate his death if it, God forbid, happens. You almost couldn't blame him. You could very clearly blame him for Charlie Kirk, but we didn't. We kept our heads down. We didn't respond with any brutality. We kept trying to negotiate and have conversations and go, you just don't understand. We are so far past that point. It is time to fucking get it. Not just nod along. You have to understand where we're at. You have to understand we have 100 million plus fucking invaders in this country who want to take your country, who are taking your country, who want to take everything you own, who are taking everything you own, and who want you dead. And there is no way, even if we got everything we wanted politically, to like deport them through the system. The only way to expel them is for the people to drive them out. Embrace your hatred, embrace your anger. You should be filled to the brim and overflowing with it, with the injustices that are happening. This doesn't get solved through conversation. or elections. There's no voting your way out of this. You do need to vote. Don't let a fucking Democrat win, because then it's over even faster. But we have a few years to convince millions of people who have spent their lives hiding their power level, keeping their head down, keeping their aggression in check, bottling it up, venting it online while doing nothing in the real world, to actually embrace brutality. So, maybe it's time to embrace the Nazi symbolism, embrace that energy that all of that propaganda has given to it, become, the unthinkable evil that they're portrayed as, at least. The media is against you. Social media is censored. These things have to happen in the real world. Why did that mayor recently take down the Irina Karutsky mural? Because they can't allow this symbolism, these visuals to be in the real world. Because there is a point, it doesn't matter what the media says if you can't walk 10 feet through your town without seeing someone Sieg hailing or fucking, handing out pamphlets or signs, murals, art, visual stimuli. And the sheep, who do have an unlimited capacity for violence, which is currently getting directed towards straight white men, that can be redirected towards the foreign hordes. But it's not going to be redirected through our government. It's not going to be redirected through our media. It will only be redirected through your actions. Yeah, I know we are out of time. It has been here. But again, your choice is, okay, so continue doing nothing and allow things to get worse. Allow this existential threat to fully manifest and guarantee your doom, your demise, your suffering, your rape, your death, and your celebration, their celebration of it afterwards. Or wake the fuck up and start fighting back. We are out of time. Don't go, I'll start tomorrow. Start today. I know this, and this is silly in the grand scheme of things, and it probably will sound silly to you, but like when I was living in Washington surrounded by leftists, I used to walk around with sidewalk chalk, and I would write things. I would write messages. And I would confront people. And here's something, this is not what I initially planned to talk about today, but I think this is a very important thing to talk about. There is so much fear on the right to actually doing any of these things, and it's not a completely unreasonable fear. We do live in the information age where you can see these absolutely insane stories, and none are explicitly coming to the top of my mind right now, but the guy who Charlottesville protest, right? Guy takes a wrong turn, ends up in the middle of a protest. He gets his car surrounded and attacked by an angry mob. They're dragging barricades in front of his car and behind his car. They're trying to break out his windows. And then a guy walks up and points an AK-47 at him, which results in him. He didn't take any action until the AK-47 was pointed at his face, and then he accelerated through the crowd. That guy got the longest sentence in America's history. He was sentenced to more years in jail than anyone ever has before. And he was smeared as, a racist Nazi, all this stuff that was completely untrue. You have, there was another example I just had in my head that I'm forgetting. But you have stories like that, right? And so it does fuel the fear, the paralyzing fear of like, if I do anything, the story of like the gardener, the Mexican gardener, the visibly Mexican gardener who flicked a booger out of his window with his middle finger, was on national news, lost his job, condemned as a white supremacist, right? But this is a big country. There are insane things that happen in this country. That's still not the norm. It is becoming more and more of the norm. And if we continue to refuse action, it will fully become the norm, right? But I lived in the most vaccinated county in the country during COVID, during BLM. I didn't comply with any of it. I was actively resisting BLM, actively confronting people. I didn't get arrested. I never even got into a fight. It came close a couple times, physical confrontations. And I was doing this by myself, all alone, right? Never got my ass beat, never got arrested. I did have the cops try and fuck with me a couple times, but like, I never suffered any crazy consequences. And I was in the heart of this shit. I was in an extremely leftist area, the number one vaccinated county in the country. It is, the fear doesn't match reality. We are rapidly heading to a point where there will be Chinese surveillance state and all of this stuff, and that fear will no longer be irrational, but we're not there yet. But if you keep accepting that fear and giving into it, we will be there very soon. They're already convinced you're a Nazi, or at least going to call you it anyways. They already want you dead. They are actively moving the world in a direction in which you will be dead. Remember who your enemies are. Your enemies are the most pathetic people in the world. Do not be consumed by the black pill. Do not be consumed by fear. And understand that if you do not do these things, we're all dead. We do need to get to a point where, the right is ready and willing to fight a civil war. The right is ready, standing there going, bring it on. We're not there yet. We have not practiced our aggression. We have not practiced our hostility. We still have the sheep openly declaring their hostility and their hatred and practicing their aggression towards us. That needs to be reeled back in through power dynamics, through the right overcoming their fear and standing up for themselves and standing against these demons. We need to build towards it, and we need to build towards it really fucking quick. But we can't do another January 6th of these half-assed measures where we're going to go in, we're going to break into the building, but we're just going to walk around. No, you've got to be willing to fucking take heads, very literally. You have to be willing to fight and die and kill. And we're not there yet. That needs to be built towards. And the more passive, the more half-assed, the more half-measured this is, the worse it all gets. We don't have a Charlie Kirk to become a new leader currently. We don't have a new movement to embrace currently. So maybe start becoming a Nazi. Start embracing it. Start displaying their symbols. Start Sieg-hailing. Again, the left can brainwash themselves all they want through media, through social media, through their, little groups, whatever. That doesn't work when they're confronted with, an endless stream of people in the real world going, Sieg fucking hail, nigger. Yeah. Good job, man. Good job. There's lots of jokes to be made there, and I know you're making a joke, at least kind of, even if you're telling the truth. But I'm at my wit's end here, fellas. If anyone wants to call in, share your thoughts, feel free. But don't nod along. You need to understand there is no political solution to this. There is no voting your way out of it. There is no way, even if birthright citizenship is revoked, which it seems like it won't be, to, through the process, deport 100 million people. There's no way to stop even more people from coming in through politics. It has to come from the people. The people have to hate and reject these foreign invaders. They have to fight against them. They have to be openly hostile to them. They have to be willing to fight them and kill them and die from them. And again, half measures only make it worse. They only show weakness. They only allow your enemy to become more entrenched. They only allow your enemy to escalate their aggression while you fail to escalate yours. I think, unfortunately, at this point, since the right did not have the appropriate response to Charlie Kirk, that they showed that they don't even have the capacity to have the right response, the next time something happens, that this does only get solved through a civil war, mass conflict, and violence. And the right is not ready for that right now. The right's just not ready for that. It has to be built towards. Start building towards it today. Find your fucking allies. Help them become enraged. Start organizing. Start doing something today. I could keep harping. I could keep repeating the same things I've already explained multiple times. But this seems like a pretty good place to end it. I think I've expressed myself as well as I'm going to. Power dynamics, confrontations, displays of visual media in the real world. Organize, get your friends together. You can do this, like get 6 buddies together. Go to a bar. Talk openly and loudly about your politics. Be ready for confrontation with people. Be ready for a fight. Don't back down. Don't flinch. What's up, homie?
What's up, dog?
How's it going?
It's going all right. One thing I did want to bring up, I didn't want to call him without a thing, but I think part of the Civil War thing, I still bring back to it's part of the World War III that we're going through, and that's why you're having immigration, because when the world doesn't have food and the resources to supply themselves, and then we're in a world economy where they're shipping people around, you start to see that we're actually just at World War III and nobody's willing to admit it. That's why India is transporting people out of there so they don't uprise and take over the whole country and destroy the entire government they have, because there's no food there. So they have to leave.
This is very much connected to the globalism and the Jewish Zionism and all that shit. My main point there is that we can't do anything to address other parts of the world until we address things at home. So yes, this is connected to bigger things. But what needs to happen first is woke needs to be destroyed. We need to bring the sheep onto our side by expressing our hostility and our aggression and dominating power dynamics ourselves. We need to bring sanity back to our country, and then we can start, addressing the world. But focusing on the world, which you're not wrong about anything you're saying, but it kind of doesn't matter until we get things under control here. So that's why I focus on, fighting the left, fighting the woke, because they are locally here at home. They're the driving force here. There are other driving forces outside of this, but those can't be addressed until we address the woke.
See, so the woke is this weird small gap of the community that just has this money. We could say the Jew there's like this weird control market, so you just have to get rid of that. But it's like they don't, like when you were saying you go face to face, if you got rid of the internet or even got communications back away from them, it would immediately become apparent that they're less than 12% of the population, and even 10% of them, 90% of them don't agree with the fucking shit they say. Here, at least.
Agree with that. I don't actually agree with
that. Maybe a lot of them do.
Because it's not just the woke white leftists, right? It's also the Muslims. It's the 100 million foreign invaders that want to take your country. They are all in this very weird coalition where, obviously Muslims hate faggots and trannies, but they support them actively and openly because they know they can use them, as a means to the end. And the left is too fucking retarded. They're too brainwashed to understand.
Only the liberal Muslims will, though. Like the real Muslims, they don't support that at all.
No, they do.
And you leave them in their country where they don't want to come here because they don't like that value. That's cool, but they also just don't like our regular values anyways.
But
they're going to stay in their country.
We're talking about our country, right?
I'm saying liberal Muslims, keep them out. Let them live in Muslim country.
Right.
Like, if you're going to be Muslim at all, live in your Muslim country, I say. Like, don't move here.
I agree, but the radical Muslims that are coming here, they actively do support the left and the woke. They will.
That makes them more radical than the actual, like, the right-wing Muslims who throw them off roofs. If you're willing to subvert your beliefs to try and trick a population to infiltrate that population, that makes you more radical than the people who actually just stand for their shit. That's what we're doing. We're trying to stand on our conservative shit, just like they're doing. You can stay in your country and do your shit. We're trying to do that, but then you have this contingency of people coming here who are trying to subvert with their mortal enemy, the Jew. Like, that's even crazier. Like, you're willing to do that to try and subvert nations and take over land? You're already at war with the world then. You're at war with me. You're at war with every culture that you come across at that point.
They are at war, and the right refuses to acknowledge that. And they are more radical and more extreme.
I think the right likes it, and the right's on board with it. It's the population of people there's people who say they're right and say they're left. They don't fucking think about any of this crap. Like, they just say it because they have one issue that they think about, like abortion or some dumb shit, that they're just retarded and they went to school and now they do some dumb fucking job. They don't care about any of this shit, so they just vote the way that they're told to vote.
Right.
Like, I think half the right isn't the right. Like, if you broke down a bunch of the right-wing policies, they'd be like, well, no, I'm for, like, less government, and that's about it. Like, everything else, they'd be like, what? No, I don't want that. I don't want any of this crap.
Yes. So a few points here. One, the Muslims are over here doing that. They are supporting the left because they are playing the long game where they're trying to, like you said, infiltrate and then ultimately bring those toss the faggots off the roof mentality here to America.
Eventually, but right now, if you're willing to subvert your beliefs, you're like the most demonic part of your religion, I say. Like, that's insane. Even your own people don't respect that. Like, it's crazy.
But they are here. They are here in large numbers. They are willing to do whatever it takes to take over this country. The left is supporting them. The left is backing them. You also have, the Somalis, the Mexicans, everything else, right? They are all working together to end white and Western America. They all have that same end goal. And so they are all working together. And it is not a small coalition. It is a very serious coalition with many people who have
a power. They have
spent years,
they have all the money, all the media,
aggression, practicing their hostility, practicing for civil war, and the right has not been doing this. While yes, our enemies are pathetic, they are also practiced, and we are not. So if there was a civil war tomorrow, we lose. Quite frankly,
not me.
Lose. The vast majority are not. The vast majority of people have been keeping their head down. They have had the mentality of like, oh, the grandma down the street is misled. Yes, she wants me dead, but I don't want her dead, or I don't want anything bad to happen to her because I believe she's actually a good person who's just misled. It doesn't matter, right? The guy who wants to kill you and your family because he's convinced that you're raping babies in your basement, he might be a good person. He thinks he's doing a good thing. It doesn't fucking matter. You shoot that guy in his fucking face and you protect your family, right? The right is not there. They're still going to try and sit that guy down and have a fucking conversation with him and explain him. The right loses for that reason. The right has to start practicing their aggression and their hostility. And in the same vein, if you want the normies who are brainwashed, who do believe these mistaken things, you want them to realize that like this is an existential threat and that they need to start fighting back against these things or they die. The only way to do that is the same exact way, to start expressing your hostility and your aggression openly and start shifting that Overton window back, taking back control of those power dynamics. Instead of having 300 people stand around and trying to mourn Charlie Kirk and allow one radical leftist to run in there, throwing punches and shut the whole fucking thing down because all 300 people are unwilling to fight back and be more brutal to that guy than he's willing to be to them. Those people lose, right? 300 versus one.
That's crazy.
Because they're still trying to play fair and nice and, negotiate with terrorists.
That happened?
That has to end. We lose the Civil War if it starts tomorrow. Like if all the people on the right go out into the streets and all the people on the left go out into the streets, we lose because we have not practiced that hostility. We have not practiced that aggression. We've done the exact opposite. We practice keeping our heads down. And we just want to play by the rules and play. That has to go. That mentality has to go. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through the brave amongst us, the ones who do truly get it, by expressing themselves, by going, Sieg Heil, nigger, whenever they call you a racist or a Nazi, right? By being fearless and bold and showing people that there are people like us who are not going to back down, who are ready and willing to fight and die and kill. That is the only thing that helps any of this.
I think that's part of what hurts it, is that the movement doesn't, like you say, the right, but it's like the left is going against something that the populace doesn't really like feel with. Like there are people on the right, but then there's just the people who are like, I'm not with any of that. Like I'm not for the left or the right. There's certain policies I agree with and don't. And they're like willing to die or fight for this group. And then they're openly saying they're Nazis. This other group's like leftists training kids. They're like, where do I go? And when the war starts, I'm sure they're going to find a side. And I'm sure they're probably going to go, hopefully a lot of them go to the Nazi side. But
what direction has the population consistently been moving in, though? Left, right, or staying in the center?
I mean, when you're on social media, you would think it's the left, but in person, from what I've seen, you see a lot more like people just staying in the center and staying kind of more right.
Obama, when he was running for president, was anti-gay marriage.
Well, I know Obama turned crazy left, and he turned the population crazy left. That was the biggest left thing I've ever seen in my life, was Obama. It was insane.
The entire population has very consistently been moving further to the left. Why has the population been moving to the left? Because the left dominates the power dynamics, because they are willing to go into the street. They're willing to scream in your face. They're willing to punch you. They're willing to get radical and go crazy, and the right isn't.
Because it's the government doing that. That's the CIA infiltrating the public.
That dictate what the sheep follow. And the power dynamics have been dominated by the left. And the only way to reclaim, a hold on the population and get them moving right again is for the right to start taking back control of those power dynamics, is for them to be willing to scream in your face, to be unafraid, to be
real
willing
press.
to punch you in the face, right? And again, I talked about this with COVID. The people on the right are afraid. And I think you were just kind of trying to talk about this with.
They were afraid of COVID too. Real journalists mentioned COVID.
They're afraid to do anything because they think the consequences are actually way more severe than they are. We are heading to a world where those consequences will be the normal response, and it will be,
it'll be the retribution. you standing by these consequences will be the retribution of your actions and lying to the public is what it's going to be eventually. Like if you stood behind these lies and you forced us into this bullshit, you will have retributions for that. Like that's going to be seen as a war crime.
I'm sorry, but no, that is not how it
Hopefully,
works.
well, no, yeah, it's probably not.
That's
Fauci will never see a day in jail.
You're 100% wrong. You're 100% wrong. Accelerationism doesn't work. Things don't get worse until a point where everyone goes, "Oh, now you've gone too far. It's time for retribution." Unfortunately, that's not how it works. You have to gradually build that hostility, that anger, those you taking actions to stop this thing. That has to boil up and build up gradually.
I'm not saying it's happening overnight.
It doesn't happen because you get more and more oppressed and you stand by and you allow them to oppress you more. And then eventually you're oppressed so much that everyone stands up. That's the exact opposite of how it works. You just get more oppressed if you do that. Things just get worse if you do that. You end up where you're at a point where, like China, you have a social credit system where you're being monitored 24/7. And, you were rude when you tried to pay your gas attendant. And so now you're cut off from every gas station in the country. You're no longer able to travel. That is where things head. That is where things go. It does not lead to retribution. It leads
but you don't see the pushback against all that? Like, because I still feel like population-wise, I feel a pushback.
Not if you don't start pushing back. And we have not seen real pushback, unfortunately. We have, again, one radical leftist shutting down a group of 300 people mourning Charlie Kirk because there is no pushback. There is no retribution.
I didn't see that. That's pretty nice.
It happened multiple times. It happened over and over again after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. There wasn't a single example of a leftist coming in and acting crazy and the right just beating the fucking shit out of them like they should have. It didn't happen once. The opposite happened repeatedly, where you get 1, 2, 3, 5 leftists coming in and shutting down hundreds. So that, what you're describing, I'm sorry to say, simply isn't how it works. There's a lot of people who believe that's how it works, but it's just not. If you want that retribution, you have to start expressing your hatred, your anger, your aggression now. You have to start encouraging other people to do it. You have to show people that it's okay to do it, right? This is why I told the story of me being in the most vaccinated county in the country, and I never participated in any of this shit. I was now, again, was I like going crazy? Was I doing insane stuff? No, I was walking around with sidewalk chalk. I was not complying, right? But there's a lot of people on the right who are afraid to even do those things because they think the consequences to their actions will be they lose their job, they get thrown in jail, they get ostracized from the community, debanked and deplatformed and all of this stuff. And yes, that is a possibility, but it's still a relatively low possibility right now. Every day that possibility gets higher, right? The reaction to your actions gets more severe every day that we continue to keep our head down. And we are heading towards a world where those fears will be completely rational, where we will be under a surveillance state, where if you do refuse to suck the tranny nigger cock, you do go to fucking jail or you do get debanked and ostracized from the community. But we're not there yet. Yes, little examples of that happening do happen, and they do get amplified for the exact purpose of trying to instill fear in the right, trying to instill passivity into the right, trying to get the right to keep their head down, because the only thing that changes this is if the right stops keeping their head down, if they do get more bold, if
that's the only power they have.
These consequences and exercising their hostility to bring the power dynamics back into our favor so that the sheep then, right? Because like you said, a lot of people actually don't support this shit. Just like a lot of people didn't support the tranny shit. The vast majority of people did not support the tranny shit. And yet all the tranny shit happened. Why? Because the trannies were willing to go out into the street and attack you. How many?
And they had the backing of the media. The media backed them.
Yes, but we can't change that, can we?
There's ways.
How?
Like you can figure the independent media coming out. You can figure that out.
We need to embrace independent media. We need to support independent media, but the legacy media is controlled. It's dominated. It's not going to change. It's
still dying. and it's a dying breed. And the more the independents bring it up, and the independents come up and they get on par with them
What
and bring up
independent
that they're
right-wing media
lying.
do we have, though? That's actually,
Not much.
What?
Alex Jones, David Icke.
Yeah, great. So like but we don't have a solid foundation there. Do I
Yeah.
encourage people to try and build it? Yes, I do. But the reality is we can't control the legacy media. It is already controlled. It's not going to change. What we can do is we can enact things in the real world. You can go out and you can paint an Irina Karutsky mural. You can go out and hand out pamphlets, that are pro-Nazi or just informational to the fact that we are being genocided, we are being invaded, doing whatever. You can go out and you can hang signs. You can write messages with sidewalk chalk or with spray paint or whatever. You can do things in the real world, and that's the only thing you can do, because we can't control the media. We can't control our government. Those are already occupied. Those are already controlled. The only thing you can do is start taking back control of the power dynamics and stop being afraid of these consequences, which, while real, are still rare, but are becoming less and less rare and more normalized. And the only way to push back against that is to stop being afraid and start fighting back. So I want to go back to the trannies for a second, because the vast majority of people did not support the trannies, yet all of the tranny shit got pushed through. Why? Because people on the left and the trannies themselves were willing to go out and punch people in the faces and scream in their faces, and the right was not willing to fight back. The right kept their head down and stayed silent. If the right instead went, no, this is fucking insane, you are destroying children's lives, we're going to beat the shit out of you, not allow you to beat the shit out of us, the sheep, all of the people in the middle who didn't actually support it, but were just kind of shrugging their shoulders, and a lot of those sheep who then turned to the side of the trannies and also joined in, going, yeah, I'm also willing to yell in your face. I'm also willing to punch you in the face, because I'm going to join the side who dominates the power dynamics. That's how the sheep work. That's why that was allowed, because the right did not stand up. They did not say enough. They did not go, you want to fight? Let's fucking fight then. They kept their head down, and they
I fought
stayed
trannies
passive.
before, dude. I've had a couple of instances in San Francisco. Like, I'm going to admit, like, somebody gets fucking wordy at me at a bar, I'll fight him, dude. Especially a fucking tranny.
Good. We need more of that. And the more people that do that, the more people that maybe don't support this shit, but who have also been keeping their head down, the more that they see, oh, these people aren't keeping their head down. They are fighting back. They are willing to scream in your face. They are willing to punch you in the face over their beliefs. Then they start joining your side. They start getting brave, and they go, hey, yeah, I don't support this either. I'm going to stand next to this guy while he yells at you. I'm going to yell at you too. That's exactly what happened on the left. That is why we've consistently moved further and further left in this country, why the Overton window has shifted further and further left. And yes, you can blame the media, you can blame all of these other things, but the driving force, and those things aren't insignificant, but the most driving force is those real world actions, is the fact that you have all this, when BLM happened, all the fucking flags, people displaying their flags, people putting up graffiti saying, all the anti-cop shit, which I'm very anti-cop, but that's a separate issue. All this shit, like, it was that real world shit that drove those actions. It was the real world shit that's
been playing on the mentally deranged
in the middle to move to the left. And it was that real world shit that encouraged those people who were in the middle, who moved to the left, to then also participate in that real world shit themselves. It is a snowball effect. It's a slippery slope, right? So that has to happen in the reverse. The right needs to start doing real world shit. They need to march down the fucking streets in Sieg Heil. They need to put up their own graffiti. They need to put up their own posters. They need to stop being afraid to express what they believe and to act upon what they believe and to take actions. And the more people that do that, the more people that are going to be willing to do that. Again, that snowball effect. There's no driving out. There's no getting rid of 100+ million illegal, whatever, legal or legal. There's no getting rid of those people without the people themselves turning on them. without the people being driven to the point where they go, we're not going to fucking hire you. We're not going to rent to you. We're not going to give you our houses and our jobs. We want you out of this fucking country. We want you out of our fucking communities. Get fucked. We'll fight you in the streets. Bring it on, motherfucker. That is what has to happen, and that is the only thing that we can do. Because, again, we can't control the media. We can't control the government. The only thing we can control is the fucking streets, and we have abandoned the streets. And we have only allowed the left to entrench themselves more because we let one motherfucker who's the faggiest, weakest, limp-wristed soy boy beta cuck come in and go, I'm going to fucking shut you down. And then they let them. Brutality, brutality, brutality. Genghis fucking Khan. Sieg Heil, nigger.
Temujin.
So that seems like a good place to end this episode. Thank you for calling in, man. I do enjoy your calls. I do appreciate you sharing yourself. And I hope you don't take too much offense because I'm kind of yelling at you right now. But, you know, yeah, you seem chill, so I appreciate it.
I feel the same way. It's a touchy subject, dude.
Yeah, no, and I do think that this back and forth does help a little bit. It is difficult to just talk to a computer screen. So thank you for calling in, man. I'll catch you guys next week. By the way, quick update for the history shit. Yeah, I'm gonna hang up on you, but thank you, man. The quick update before I end the show for the history shit. Last time I talked about pre-dynastic Egypt, I said that I'm not saying the pre-dynastics built the pyramids, but maybe it's something that should be considered. By the time I do, I've been more focused on this and other things in my life than the history stuff, but I've researched very little, and that very small amount of research has yielded incredible results. I think by the time I get around to making that next video, I might actually be making the argument that the pre-dynastics built the Great Pyramids. So little teaser for that, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace out, fellas.